Hello, and welcome to Chumps, a reading podcast where three guys read a book and then talk about it. I'm your host, Connor. I'm joined as ever by my two co-hosts, Connor and Josh. We are your chumps here to talk some chapters. I'm about to crack open a cold one there.
Oh, yeah. Me too, buddy. Me too.
Cracking open a cold one.
I'm cracking open a Dr. Pepper Blackberry Zero Sugar.
Wow.
Yeah.
You ever had one of those?
Well, they just came out a couple this past week, and so I've had a lot now.
It sounds new. It sounds like it's
new.
a new soda. Yeah.
I've had a lot. By now, I've had a lot.
Okay.
But before this past week, never, because they're
right.
brand
So
new.
so it's safe to say that you like it. You like them.
Oh yeah, they are delicious.
They because sometimes they come out with a new soda and it's like, what the fuck were they thinking? You know?
And here's the thing with Dr. Pepper. Specifically, is like the last big new soda they put out was is like Dr. Pepper strawberry cream, and like I tried that, and it's just like it's really to my taste buds, it's very gross. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't think Dr. Pepper and strawberry cream should it doesn't fit together. And that, guess what? That's fucking. I guess it's popular because it's been on the shelves for months.
Yeah.
I guess people love it or something, but I never.
That worries me that that's not a good sign for Blackberry. Because if everyone's just guzzling down strawberry cream and you're like, what's up with that? And you're the guy who likes Blackberry, it feels like maybe you're you're kind of like on the other end.
Yes. You know? No, I could very well be in the minority. And that's the, for a lot of these soda variants, that is the case. And then they did disappear forever in a couple weeks or months. So fingers crossed for Blackberry.
Okay, well, and Josh, you're drinking some water. Do I have that right?
Absolutely.
Ice water.
Nope, just cold water.
Okay.
I drink it too quickly for the ice to matter. So
changing it up a little bit.
No, I almost never put ice on my water. At home, at least. I can't. Restaurants kind of do it for me. Otherwise, I don't usually put ice in any of my drinks.
Right. I was just like,
I will occasionally put ice in tea if it's like way too hot in the morning and I need to like take it in the car with me.
Yeah.
But that's just
there's a name for that.
No, like I literally just brew tea in like a thermos, and I need to like be able to drink it in the car and not burn myself. I'm not trying to make iced tea.
Here's the thing though, Josh. So I'll say this about you: you are a nice guy, but you're not an ice guy. That's what I'd say.
What I think is funny about
true statement.
Josh's description, if he were on the USS Enterprise, his order would be tea, Earl Grey, but not too hot. Warm.
I actually had warm Earl Grey this morning. It wasn't that great. It was not pleasant.
Okay, so it has to be between warm and hot.
It wasn't Earl Grey?
Definitely.
But
not so hot that it burns you. It's like, hot.
Right. Do they drink tea on winter? We know they drink hot beer.
I don't think they've mentioned anything about tea or any other drink aside from the beer and the alcohol.
They only drink booze.
I said beer and then alcohol. I realized that. We've only heard about alcohol. On Gethin.
I mean, it does seem like, obviously they got it. If anyone's drinking ice water, it's probably the Gethenians, right? I mean, they got a lot of ice to go around.
I don't think they have. They have ice. I don't think they have ice water.
Yeah, I don't know. I
don't think the Gethenians would really care much for like a snow cone or a slushie. Whoops.
Yeah.
They're missing out.
Or maybe that's all they eat. It's just they put flavor in the snow, and that's just how they have a meal.
They're like, oh, yellow snow, it's lemon flavored. Nah.
Yep. That's probably, honestly, if fucking Genly wasn't trying to be like the Ecumen ambassador or whatever, he probably could just make a really great living just making. He could invent snow cones because it sounds like, they're like fucking 10,000 years behind whatever his society's at or more.
I think 3,000.
Yeah, give or take
a few thousand. But no, I don't think he would make a lot of progress because the book specifically is talking about how they are slow and methodical with their progress, not like, oh, here's this new thing that burst on the scene. It's not playtime.
True. I guess in some ways, Genly himself is a snow cone, and everyone on Winter is like, what do we do with this thing?
There will be no snow cone revolution.
What is the point of this? We have snow over here.
Yes. Yeah, it is kind of like that. Obviously, we are going to get into our chat, and today we're going to be talking about chapters 7 and 8 of Ursula K. Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness. Before we do, I guess I'm just wondering, in general, how's it going, guys? How we doing? You want just a quick check-in? Just a few-minute check-in? How we doing, Josh?
I'm doing okay in my life, and I'm trying to buy a new car, and that's proving tedious at this point because I've made my selection, and now I just gotta wait for the factory to bake it.
Wait! Are you getting an electric car?
I am, hopefully.
Can I ask specifically what it is?
The Hyundai Ioniq 5.
Ooh.
So it's like a electric crossover, and I've sprung for the highest trim level because I've been driving the same Honda Civic for 17 years, and I'd like to splurge a little bit.
Has it really been that long?
It is literally the car I learned how to drive in, yes.
Wow. It's amazing that the car has lasted that long.
It is, yeah. It's only got about 156,000 miles on it. For a car as old as it is, it's still a lot of miles, but it did sit around a lot through the pandemic and when I was in college. Just because you didn't really need a car to go to the grocery store at my college because it was a block away.
Yeah.
And then I actually wasn't allowed to have a car until sophomore year or junior year. So it was a couple of years where it didn't get as many miles on it. But the alternator died for like the third time in 2 years. So it's I have officially driven it into the ground.
Yeah.
And need something new.
I see.
And I'm hoping that when I do get the new car, I can go on road trips a little bit. Not like cross-country stuff, just like tool around and see what I can see and try to get out to some new places.
Yeah.
With Nova and without sometimes.
Hey, that's a really great plan and a cool life update. Let us know when you get the car, Josh.
I will. We should absolutely go for like a cruise at some point.
Yeah, we should do like a Wild Hogs thing where like we kind of all get in our respective cars and just cruise around.
We are getting to that age.
Well, here's the thing: it's an electric car. It has all the it has like an outlet and stuff. We could probably figure out how to do a podcast from the car.
Oh, podcast guys in cars drinking lukewarm tea.
Like after the movie, like after a movie or something, we could. I don't know of any movies we'd want to go see together right away that we would podcast about until Sonic 4 comes out, at least. Because I'm assuming that's going to come out before the next Dune movie.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Chances are those will probably be within a couple months of each other, just like Dune 2 and Sonic 3.
Imagine they come out on the same day.
Yeah,
that'd be feature.
We'd be fucked.
That'd be the next Barbenheimer. That would be Donic.
Yeah.
Duonic or Dunic.
Sonic Messiah.
Ooh.
I think
like
there's
that
probably
more.
some fanfic about that somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
Nice.
What about you guys?
Connor?
Yeah, doing okay. You know, living my life. Living my life. The only way I know how.
I ain't gonna
Wow. Okay.
You know,
is that you just want to leave it like as cryptic as that? Is that the update? Like,
I don't know, not too much to say. I'm, it's doing okay, swimming along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been like
Just
reading
keep swimming.
or watching anything else that like you've been into? Or
So last night actually I just started to watch Severance.
oh,
Uh,
dude,
yeah, I watched the first 3 episodes last night.
that's cool. I haven't watched it, but I've heard it's a show about hating your job so much that it's like its own sci-fi premise. So
Yeah, I won't get into the specifics of it, but that's pretty much what it kind of is. And yeah, really, really, really good. I really enjoyed it.
I've seen all of 5 seconds of that show, and it's just the dolly zoom that's used for an effect in the show in an elevator. That's all I
Oh,
know. Because the slow mo guys put out a video on their second channel, just kind of demonstrating that effect. So they use
Yeah,
a
it does
couple
some cool
clips, and
things.
that's all. Yeah, that's
I will
all I saw with this
probably
show.
I'll probably finish it within the next week, and I'll let you guys know how it is.
is
Okay.
that on
Hopefully we
Amazon
podcast then.
Prime?
It's on
I think
Apple
it's Apple.
TV.
Apple. It's on Apple. Okay. Huh. Cool. Yeah, I've been interested in that.
Which free if you know how to find it. Us millennials, we got our secret ways. We can get things without streaming services.
So you're saying you don't have Apple TV?
No, I actually do have a free month.
He has
free
an Apple
2 month
and
trial.
TV.
I got a free 2 month trial. That's why I started.
He has an Apple and a TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it's true. Oh man, that is some good stuff. Well, I am an enigma.
Yeah, Connor, how are you doing?
I am the mysterious host. No one knows anything about me. I host a podcast.
I'm just imagining milk spilling on a table.
Yeah. Is that a SpongeBob?
That's a SpongeBob reference, yes.
Right? What is it's like the inner machinations of my mind. Yeah.
Art Enigma.
Good one. Yeah, no, I'm all right. I am all right. I guess my like media updates, nerdy shit. I've been playing. I started playing this game called Golden Sun, which originally came out on the Game Boy Advance, and I have a Switch and I play for Switch Online, or I pay for Switch Online, like their service, and so like I had some time off recently, and I was like, I'm gonna get into like a game. I haven't been like, and I played Golden Sun when it came out, and it's kind of hard to believe because when you boot it up, it has the date. It came out in 2001. I wasn't even 10 yet.
Holy shit!
I know. Yeah, I was 9 years old when this game, and I got it when it came out. Like I remember getting it, I think for Christmas, and just like being at my grandpa's house and being like, yeah, I don't want to fucking talk. Like, I don't care. It's Christmas. I'm going to play Golden Sun. Like, so it's kind of a trip to be playing it now, over 2 decades later. That's cool. I've been kind of returning to some older games, and it's been fun.
Nice.
Is that like GoldenEye?
It's not, but I've also been playing Perfect Dark on the Switch, which is a lot like GoldenEye. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah,
I've just been playing a lot of Halo still because I'm just addicted to that multiplayer now. Apparently, I don't know. I got sucked into the ranked Slayer mode and have been trying to improve my rank, but can never. I always seem to get into a losing streak when I get close to the goal that I've set myself. So, oh well.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Would I have seen you play Golden Sun, Connor? At any point?
Probably not really.
Huh.
I remember I have very clear memories of playing Fire Emblem on the Game Boy Advance over at your old house, but I don't think I was playing Golden Sun, to be honest. When
I don't remember you guys playing Game Boys like at all, so that must have been like early friendship.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we switched over to GameCube pretty quickly.
Yeah, we had Game Boys for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
When the first, it was. I mean, my first Game Boy was. I think it was the color one that came out. I don't think I had the original.
I remember you had like a yellow color.
Connor,
yellow Game Boy Color.
You had one of the originals, right? Did you?
I actually did not. My first was also a Game Boy Color.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I never had a handheld.
Man.
My cousins had the Game Boy SP.
Yes.
And that's about as close as I ever got to having my own handheld until I bought the Switch for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, to this day, and it's not going to change because I'm old and I'm set in my ways. But like my like, I don't know, my fucking old ass head opinion is I think the Game Boy Advance SP is one of the greatest systems ever made. And just like including consoles, I just think it's like perfect. It's a perfect fucking system. I still have my Game Boy Advance SP. I played it a few years ago. Yeah,
it's simple. It's compact, and yeah, it's just about all you need.
Even better than the PS Vita.
Oh yeah, by a country mile, my friend.
Okay,
Yep.
I thought that was
the
one
DS
of
was also a good system, from what I understand. But my only real interaction with it was just occasionally playing Mario Kart, passing it around like the school bus, on long field trips. But that was only like a year when it was first taking off. So
yeah, DS was after my retirement.
Mm. Yep.
Yeah, I was more of an Xbox player at that point too. So it was just like something to pass the time on literally like a 10-hour bus ride. So
yeah. I don't know. It was a great time to be a gamer.
They were the best of times. They were the best of times. Now it's all shit.
Crap.
Let's talk about books. Let's talk
before we launch
about
into shitification, let's talk about books.
Let's talk about sex, baby.
Oh
Question
boy,
about- question of
Connor,
sex.
don't get naughty.
Uh-huh. That's what we're
What is
gonna do. Chapter 7, the question of sex.
Which, Connor, to be fair, this is a question you've had for a long time. Like I remember you asked
like
me
what is it?
what this is. You know, and I was like, I don't think I'm the one that should be telling you this.
Yeah, right. Now I realize why you recommended this book. It's kind of answering some questions that you've been brushing aside for a long time.
Yeah. And to be clear, this is exactly the way they describe it is exactly how it works in the real world too.
Yeah, right. No, it makes
Where did the birds and the bees come
clear?
They would be different. I guess everyone would be birds and bees.
Yeah. And birds and bees on Gethin also have no genitalia for most of their existence. It's seasonal. They have seasonal
genitalia. Yeah.
Which, if we were naming episodes,
would
that be a slam dunk?
Yeah, I was going to say the same exact thing.
Oh boy, maybe we should just bring it back.
Yeah.
Maybe just a little.
Okay. Chapter 7, the question of sex. Where we last left off, that was where Genly had met up with Fax and the whole foretelling, and Estravin was in Orgorian or Orgerain or whatever. I haven't figured out how I want to say it. And a lot of things were kind of set up for, what would be happening next in the story. And Ursula K. Le Guin, she likes to do this thing where it's like, here's your story chapter and here's your world building chapter. And those things are kind of just alternating. And obviously the world building and the story, it's not that they're as separate as that. They're interconnected. But she does kind of do this thing where she'll just like have a chapter that is from a separate perspective that kind of fills in gaps you might have about like the world or the culture or the history, things like that. And the question of sex is very much that kind of chapter. And it's sometimes I think it's a little jarring, not in a bad way, but like, we've been taking breaks reading, and some of that's my fault, and I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. It's not because I didn't want to. I was busy.
Thank you for taking accountability.
I'm taking accountability. I will fall down on my sword right here for you two. But anyways, that's all to say is like, essentially, I'm cracking open the book, and I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta finally read for this podcast. And all of a sudden, I'm getting like a National Geographic breakdown of like the mating seasons of these people on winter. It
reminds me of that song. What's that band? Does that song?
Bloodhound Gang.
Bloodhound Gang.
I knew that's what you were
on the
thinking
Discovery
of.
Channel. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. And it's not all just sex education, but all the sex education stuff is also pretty interesting and does answer some questions that we've had. If you want to get into the nitty gritty, we could do that. But I guess I'm just wondering, what did we think of this chapter, and is there anything specific we want to start with here? Connor, what did you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, so again, it had been a little while since I had read the book, so I kind of like knew the gist of what the answer to the question of sex on Winter. But yeah, going into it, I mean, it really is fascinating, and just how the culture is so based around their sex lives or reproductive nature. It makes me think of how ours is set up kind of not the same, but it's inform but the same things inform the structure of our society.
Yeah. It does make you
Um,
think about how our society is influenced by sexual desires.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think there's a lot to chew on here. I was waiting to get to this part so you guys could be kind of fully or close to fully in the loop with the biological reality of Gethin, and then also there's a fun idea of like, well, this doesn't seem to be natural evolution. Was it an
Yeah.
experiment? Did somebody experiment on these people and just kind of that's where it originated from? So those are fun ideas as well.
Yeah, this chapter cleared up a lot of not quite questions that hadn't really formed in my head yet about what the setting was like, and we've barely touched on like the Hainish cycles and what they're talking about, but it sounds like it's like cycles of galactic history, where it's just literally thousands, tens of thousands to millions of years of just the ebbs and flows of civilization that get and just being having technology discovered and rediscovered over and over again. It's a cycle, and we see this investigator about 50 years before the main setting of the book talking about how they found evidence that Gethin was a colony where some genetic experiments may have been happening, and that kind of answers the question we had earlier of like, why are the Gethins like this if they're human? And apparently they were genetically manipulated, or there's evidence that it could be that. We find out about some disturbing like degenerate winged creatures on another planet, just kind of offhandedly mentioned. I wonder if those are in like another book that wrote.
I'm pretty sure they're in a short story.
Okay. But that for some reason that evoked some very you're probably not gonna get this reference, but like the now I say I'm not gonna, I don't even remember the name of the creatures, like the more fuck, what are they called? It's the creatures from the H.G. Wells' The Time Machine is what I'm trying to get at here. I just can't remember what they're called at this moment. Morlocks, the Morlocks, where they're descendants of humanity, but they're basically like goblin creatures that live underground. And so I was just kind of getting like mental images of that when she wrote about the degenerate winged creatures. Is like I was thinking some really disturbing imagery of like pterodactyl humans. But yeah, no, this is actually like a very almost clinical description of Gethenian physiology and sex. I don't know the words all of a sudden. and their sex lives, apparently, or culture. And you can see where some of it's taken from, like, modern humanity and how modern humans function, but others compare other pieces of information are compared directly to, like, different kinds of mammals, and I don't know. It's interesting stuff. It's just
Yeah,
it's a lot.
it is a
very,
lot.
It's a
Yeah,
very dense
and I mean,
chapter.
it is. Yeah. For being so short, it packs a lot of information in there. I mean, there's the chemering process, the idea that that monogamy does exist in some way, but it's not really. That's not the only.
It's
That's
not like an
only
institution. It's
accepted.
just a cultural thing.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. It's just like a promise. There's nothing enshrined in law about it. And then also the idea that like they don't seem to have a concept of rape in the culture within Kemmering,
Right.
which is I don't know, the assertion that that most mammals don't, besides humans and a few outliers.
That
I don't know
feels
if that rings true to me or not, but I'm not.
yeah
I'm
that
not a fucking. I don't know. I'm not a an animal expert. I
yeah
don't know.
that bit sounded like it may have been just dated science from the '60s influencing the writing there. Um, Plus the the scene with the foretelling seemed to be
It was rapey.
mildly
It was rapey.
yeah
Yes,
mildly may have been
definitely. But I mean,
the wrong word there.
he. I think ultimately the creep, the pervert, was rejected, right? So it's not. It's just an example of
Yeah.
part of this weird process.
Yeah, I do think there's this like straddling of this line, where because given what this person writes about, like what they observe and what they find out about uh Gethenian sex and all that, it's like I think essentially that the sexual intercourse cannot happen unless both parties are willing, you know.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's like on what Connor's saying, it's like, yes, in the foretelling situation, that the pervert is, I do think it's like unwanted advances, and yet like I think within the foretelling, like it has to be that way, and I do think it ends in the rejection, and so it's like, pretty much like, well, it didn't technically happen, right? Even though, yes, like it doesn't mean that there isn't unwanted advances and that there isn't like sexual aggression or maybe even violence, but that it can't like definitionally be rape on Gethin. I think like that's the difference.
Yeah,
At least according to this writer from 50 years. This might have been the first person who came to Gethin. We don't even know if they're completely right.
Right. And it's possible the definition of rape in the 60s is slightly different from how we define it today. And so the usage is just different. I just don't know.
Yeah. What else? It was we were talking about, oh well, if they were like bio experiments, the people of Gethin.
Yeah.
That was another thing. I didn't think that we were gonna get even like any direction or idea of why the Gethenians are the way they are. I was like just fully accepting of like, oh, I think Ursula K. Le Guin just, not that she might not know as the author, but I didn't think that was going to be part of the story. And like, sure enough, I think that she does that really clever trick, like something I see more and more in sci-fi books that I really like, where it's like, oh well, here's one possible answer that's posited by a character, and so like you as the reader who are like, oh, maybe that's it, and it's like, yeah, but maybe not. And I think it's better than providing a flat out answer, and better than not commenting on it at all. I love that characters are thinking about it.
Yeah, totally agreed. I think I think it stirs the imagination more than if there was just an out and out explanation, and encourages you to think about it. Yeah, and yeah, I like that a lot as well.
It is a good is a good writing tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like especially in books like this where we're detailing like a whole world, a whole planet of beings and their culture, and I think it's a really great plot device, but it also works very well within the narrative. Like of course these of course the Ecumen are going to posit their theories, and obviously they may or may not be wrong. We might be some of these might be even disproven within the book. I don't know,
We'll see.
but yeah, it's fun to read their ideas.
Yeah. And as like, and it's like, yes, like their ideas, the characters, and then I feel like as an author, I really like that trick, or that tool, because it reminds me of like an impressionist painting where the things that the artist is actually like literally painting or doing, they're very simple, and then like you take a step back and you look at it, and it's like, oh wait, it's like your mind kind of like fills in these other things. You're like, oh wow,
Yeah,
like, oh, they painted a person there, but if you really look at it, it's just a smudge, and your
yeah,
mind imagines it to be a person. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely. Yeah, and
um
I think Frank Herbert does this in Dune to great effect as well.
totally.
Where yeah, it just these writings, these historical documents. You get the opportunity to kind of peek in on them, and then you can come up with your own theories on how that may or may not fit into your view on the world, or the whatever historical figure or experience they're retelling. So yeah, I think it's I just really love the whole concept of and I'm not like a Star Trek guy, but it feels very Star Trek. I like the Ecumen kind of contacting these kind of rogue backwater planets and observing them. It's not like the most adventurous thing,
Yeah,
but it's very fascinating to me.
it it is a different way to go about first contact for sure. Um, and I think I mentioned it before. Like the Ecumen feels a bit more like a Ferengi construct than like the Federation of Planets. Um, but there are definitely some parallels in it's a federation of some sort of planets that is seeking out other planets to just grow and to uh, add to its knowledge and existence.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and even the ambiguous nature of the Ecumen in this book, you can hypothesize or theorize about their history as well as the history of Gethin. So you're kind of just like an outside observer to both parties.
Yeah. I feel like the second chapter, there's there's like a lot of that where when other characters are talking to Genly, it'll be like, "Oh, I this is what you like from your planet, right?" Or Genly will be like, "Oh, well, actually, Genly keeps referring to Terra now," which I'm like, "Okay, so now
Yeah,
there's Terra? We were confused about that before."
well, yeah, he mentioned that he was from Terra, and most of my confusion is whether or not Terra is Earth as
Earth.
we are sitting on right now, or if it is just another name for another planet that just happens to come from the old Latin uh, for
Oh,
Earth. Wait, is
right.
Terra
Yeah,
Latin or Greek? Fuck.
right. I forgot that was the confusion. I remember now. Yeah.
And I'm still wondering because there's a passage in this chapter where they refer to Terra being the evidence being, I think it's like the first page. Hold on. Yeah, it's literally the second sentence. But now that there is evidence to indicate that the Terran colony was an experiment, the planting of one Hainish normal group on a world with its own proto-hominid autochthones, the possibility cannot be ignored. The possibility being that Gethen is also a colony. So I think that passage is meant to insinuate that there is a race of Terrans a race of Hainish normal humans, whatever that means, in the context of that. We have no idea beyond this book what Hainish refers to.
Right. Apparently, they all have mind control or fucking
Yeah.
whatever telekinesis. But yeah, go on.
On a world basically called Earth, where there was a already an indigenous population of hominids, or proto hominids, basically apes. So that passage could be an insinuation that this is an experiment of something like, just spitballing, like if we put humans on another planet with hominids, will they uplift the hominids somehow? If we put them on another planet, is it just to like observe these other creatures and see if they become anything like us, or is it an insinuation that Terra is literally Earth in the Sol system, and is and that all the evidence that we have of human evolution on Earth is just a coincidence from the fact that the Hainish normal people put us on a planet with other apes.
Yeah.
There's a big word that I had to look up when I was reviewing the chapter this afternoon, and I still not pronounce it. The autochthone, but it basically means like indigenous.
So. I see. Le Guin's vocabulary is pretty high in general. Pretty elevated. There's like pretty often I'm reading through. Sometimes I look up the words, but a lot of times I'm just like sure and just keep going. But she definitely she has a rich vocabulary.
She knows her way around a dictionary, that's for sure.
Yep. As much as those on Gethin know their way around a dick, am I right?
Oh, okay. All right, don't be crude.
All right, sorry. It was a little crass. You're right. It's just the dictionary has the word dick in it. Okay. Sorry. What was I gonna say? Oh, right. Well, the whole maybe these things are, influencing evolution or weird. It's like, okay, well, that makes me think of the monolith from 2001. Just throwing it out there because, we read that shit. Also, Josh, wouldn't you say that everything that we've discussed here, Connor was saying it makes him think of Star Trek, but it sounds like it's a gross violation of the Prime Directive, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah, no, they're not following the Prime Directive by any means. But they do have a first contact procedure that they're following here.
I have no idea what the Prime Directive is. Sorry, guys.
The Prime Directive basically states that the Federation can't contact or influence the cultures of pre-warp civilizations.
Yeah.
And that came from the Vulcans, and that's why we haven't met the Vulcans yet, is because we haven't broken the speed of light, the warp barrier.
Makes total sense.
Yep. But it's only the Federation that's held up to that standard. Other galactic powers in the Star Trek universe, such as the Klingons and the Ferengi, do not follow the Prime Directive and will uplift other civilizations that they come across, or trade them technology that they're not ready for and stuff like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's not without precedent in the Star Trek universe, and that's kind of one of the other reasons I pointed to the Ecumen possibly being more Ferengi aligned than Federation aligned. It's because their mode of operation here of contacting other worlds, even though they're not quite spacefaring yet, just so that they have an opportunity for commerce, is very Ferengi.
Yeah. Indeed.
Damn, that's Ferengi.
That's what they say. Hashtag damn, that's Ferengi. They do that all the time now.
Internet, do your thing.
I think the last thing I want to mention is, just kind of touching on the different phases that are mentioned here. And I don't really want to go through and just repeat we all read it, obviously.
Connor, you really want to touch on them?
Yeah, I want to touch on it.
All right.
I want to touch on it. We're going to touch on it, baby.
All right, if you say so.
But I guess what it is so there's these phases, and the writer goes through how long they last, and we get like some interesting insight, like, oh, and obviously, things kind of continue if they become pregnant or not, but like within like a cycle, talking about like, oh, there's the Hainish cycle and like the cycle of dates. Well, there's a cycle of like sexuality that that the Gethenians experience. And it made me think back to when Estraven was at that hospital after he, is shot with the sound gun or whatever and all that. And the doctor's like, oh, we were kind of like speculating or discussing like, oh, could this have something to do, I think at the time, with like the Chemering. And I think that is what that was alluding to, that he was in some sort of cycle. And at first, I guess with this, I think maybe illuminated for me a bit more, is that I kind of thought that maybe the Gethenian sexuality was like essentially default asexual, unless they like come into contact with someone who kind of like arouses or entices their sexuality, and that like it would be activated by the presence of like a potential mate or suitor or whatever. And yet it's actually just
the biological clock.
Yes, it is within the individual. It's something that they experience on a personal cycle that they go through. I think that was like the most clarifying and like biggest realization that I had reading through this chapter, just in terms of like, okay, like that's kind of like the big idea, is that this just occurs, yes, biological clock on a cycle for all Gethenians, just at like different personal intervals. Now we know. I don't really have much else to add. I just wanted to share that like this was my confusion, and this is what the chapter cleared up on it. I guess.
Yeah, and just a quick question for you guys, just like a fun thought experiment or whatever. It like we know what we got going on down there. We know what's happening. We don't have to say it. We know how humans reproduce. We've all been there. We've all been there. We've seen the textbooks. We've all had 5th grade sex ed before they removed it, thankfully.
And they have removed it. It's gone. They also removed history. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, but we don't need that anyways. But so what's your preference? What we got going on, like human sexual reproduction or Gethenian? Like, let's talk about pros and cons. Compare and contrast. Connor, you can start.
Sorry, I wasn't ready for that.
It's hard to say because you don't know what the other side is like. But I don't know. Maybe it would be kind of nice to have the Gethenian experience, because we talked about how it shapes their society, and you know what I like the most about how Gethenian, like the Gethenian sexual experience has impacted their culture. For some reason, that has resulted in all cars having a cap of 25 miles per hour. Yeah. And I was reading the book. I'm like, that sounds so pleasant.
But also excruciating.
Genly is describing like his nice countryside drive through like the summer field of wheat in his 25 mile per hour max car. And I'm just like, wow, what a dream. To be honest, that just sounds so nice to me.
I actually agree. We go way too fast with these big hunks of metal.
I don't know, because yes, a slow drive through the country sounds lovely. It absolutely does. 25 miles per hour sounds excruciatingly slow. 25 miles per hour is slower than we would drive in our home neighborhood.
Yeah,
I know, but like, imagine if you've never gone faster than 25 miles per hour. It's all relative, you know?
Yeah.
It is. You're absolutely right. But I don't think I could do like a country drive under 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So Connor, pretty much what you're saying is you you would appreciate it for the
what
effects
I'm saying
on
is
the
I would
culture.
chop off my dick and balls
Yeah.
if it got me a car that wouldn't go faster than 25
Totally.
miles per hour.
It-
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to amend my statement. It would depend on um, uh, the scenery.
Yeah.
Like rows of trees down down a straight road, like shady boulevard kind of thing. Yeah, sure, maybe 30 miles an hour. Like country fields, I'd want to go a little faster.
What about sheets of ice as far as the eye can see?
Give me an airplane
Josh,
or
do you
snowmobile.
have any thoughts on the Gethin reproductive
I mean, like I
cycle
said,
and the how you think that would impact a human society,
how it would affect our society?
or your preferences, compare
Yeah,
contrast.
I don't know. Reading this chapter was very, like I said earlier, almost clinical. It
Yeah.
answered a lot of questions, but it also brought up a lot of aspects of how their sexuality affects their culture that I had never considered before.
Yeah.
So I found this chapter just kind of a little bit eye-opening on
Totally.
what parts of our culture are influenced by our constant sexual sex drives for the
Yeah.
to varying degrees of off to problematic.
Yeah. Totally.
And it's I don't know. For some reason, my brain kept going to advertising because sex sells, but that
Sure.
would not work on Gethin.
No,
It would only work on Gethin for all of half a week for any individual.
That's
out of
absolutely
a
that's so
month.
true, Josh. I didn't even think about that. That's a great point. Yeah, that's just a whole industry that is
Yeah.
eliminated. Yeah, well, and I mean it's pervasive throughout maybe every industry to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Um,
The
yeah.
it was interesting that when people go through their cycle, like they're not expected to work. They basically get a free holiday every month.
Yeah.
Which sounds
Free
nice.
sex holiday.
Yeah, when you flip it around, it just turns out, oh yeah, why didn't Jim come into work today? Oh, he's too horny.
Yeah.
He's at the
It
fuck
does-
house again.
It is a little bit like though. I mean, have you heard about like movements to get like period leave for?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have.
So it's sort of it's akin
It's
akin
almost
to
cer-
that, of course.
yeah, it's almost certainly a direct commentary on those kind of movements.
Yeah.
I would say
'Cause,
so.
this was probably written before, like, more regulating medication or period regulating medication became more commonplace. So
Yeah.
it would have been
and-
more of a issue. Not saying it isn't now, but
Sure.
as a white dude on the internet, I obviously have the authority to talk about this.
Yeah, no, please
Thank
go
you
on.
for saying that. Yeah. So, and to just jumping off of that, I really like the one thing that I kind of would prefer as far as Gethin goes. Like I like how it's just like a normal thing within their society. Like it's not like they don't have the puritanical culture that kind of is so pervasive, where sex is a dirty word, and you have to speak about it in
It's-
hushed tones and fight to get any sex education in our
Yeah.
education systems. Like this is it's a natural biological thing that people just do, and it's normalized. It's not a big deal. It's
It-
just there.
It goes against a lot of our social norms with oops, sorry, text messages were coming in. It defies a lot of our social norms from what Le Guin calls bisexual nature,
Yeah.
which has different connotations today.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought because that text message popped in. Shoot, sorry.
It's all good. Connor?
Well, Josh, if it comes back to you, please let us know.
I will.
Yeah, okay, just a couple quick things because you had been talking about like, oh, how this also kind of shines a light on, the way that sex influences our own society. And it does make you think, like, well, if there was, an ambassador from Gethin, who came to Earth, like, just how bizarre and alien. If there was essentially a chapter written from like a similar like vantage point as we read in this chapter here, chapter 7, the question of sex, on our own society, on our own planet, it probably would seem rather odd and rather strange. And that's not a novel thought. People have kind of questioned those things for a long time, but just the way that this chapter kind of, I think, elicits that thought as you're reading, like, because of course you, the reader, are the human on Earth, and I do think that something about the way that it's structured, or like the style of the writing and the things that it interrogates about Winter does kind of lead you to sort of reflect and think, like, man, are we just as fucking weird, but I'm just living in it,
Yeah, totally.
And that's, that's something that I think good sci-fi does. It has you think about your own worlds. And this chapter definitely did do that. I'd also say, because when we were talking about the whole bio-experiment thing, this chapter ends with, they kind of return to that thought, and they're like, why would the people have tried to make these weird freak bio experiments anyways? Like, what could possibly be the fucking purpose? And they theorize that it could be to eliminate war.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. That's it. Yes.
I had a bit of an issue with that theory.
Let's talk about it.
It's like it. Oh man, how do I start with this? I was thinking about this just a couple hours ago, and now I can't get it. The character seems to postulate that continuous sexual capacity and organized social aggression, neither of which are attributes of any mammal but man, are cause and effect. Or like Tuma's song Anget, did they consider war to be a purely masculine displacement activity? A vast rape, and therefore in their experiment eliminate the masculinity that rapes and the femininity that is raped. God knows. The fact that the Gethenians, though highly competitive, seem not to be very aggressive. At least they apparently have never yet had what one would call a war. They kill one another readily by ones and twos, seldom by tens or 20s, never by hundreds or thousands. Why? So, I don't know. It's, first of all, the assertion that continuous sexual capacity and organized social aggression are attributes. Are neither of which are attributes to any mammal but man, doesn't really hold true to modern science. I mean, chimpanzees have literally gone to war. We've documented it. It's not a like global catastrophe like when humans go to war, but they fight each other in an organized manner. Ants go to war, though they're not mammals.
Yeah. I do think that the difference would be made. It's just like when it's like saying, well, the Gethenians have forays. I think anything that you would describe as war in any other species is a Gethenian foray.
I have felt like what they're calling forays is just war, but at a smaller scale. I just don't. That's why the assertion that Gethenians never had war is just like it's a matter of degrees here. It's not a matter of like this is a war versus not a war. It's like it's degrees. Like they are fighting each other.
Yeah, I guess the distinction really is it's more about what type of
there's conflict.
Sorry. what type of like population it is. Like they are a large population of like intelligent mammals who have societies that are advanced. There was not an industrial revolution, but there was an industrial advancement that brought them
Yeah.
to a place where they are capable of staging large-scale warfare on the level that we see on Earth with humans, but they don't do it for some reason.
Yeah, they don't have industrial war, but they do have conflict.
Well, and the thing is that okay. So yes, it's a difference of degrees, but the fact is that I think that Le Guin is positing that the degrees matter, because if we're talking about a difference of degrees, then on the one end, if we're talking about conflict, you have one person fighting another person physically, and on the other end, you have global war. And you could argue that that's all a difference of degrees, but you realize at a certain point, after a certain degree, the definition matters. War and conflict are two different things.
Yes, and when I'm saying conflict, I don't just mean like a squabble between neighbors. Like there's this whole political situation with this region that Estraven was ostracized for. So it's like, if this is the impression I'm getting is that this is not a new situation. I mean, this particular situation is new and developing, obviously, but like this kind of conflict, a diplomatic conflict, is not a new phenomenon on Gethin.
No, but I
and
think
it's not it's not exactly a war yet, but I did hear you, Connor. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. I tap my mic because I know it's fucked up, so I just want it. So before I speak, the thing that that I think differentiates these conflicts is that on other worlds, from what the Ecumen have cataloged, is that these conflicts that happen on Gethin, they lead to actual full-blown war on other planets, but that does not happen here for some reason.
And also,
yeah,
the other important component to this, I think, is coming from like what Estraven was talking about in his initial chapter, and what Genly kind of reflects on in the chapter we're going to discuss, or thinks more about what we're going to discuss, which is that like there's not an idea of nationalism on Gethin yet, and the thing that is really intriguing and sort of like has this sense of dread is that you see that it's building, that Tybe and Karhide is like actively working to create nationalism, and that Genly, who has a much broader and more technologically and like societologically advanced experience and understanding, is like, these are the conditions that create war. And like I think that's what's interesting about this book, is like, Le Guin is sort of creating Gethin as this exploration of like, what is a world without rape? What is a world without war? What are the things that like need to occur in order for these things, in order for the conditions to like happen? And obviously it's a very big thing to tackle, because I think at once Le Guin is sort of positing that war is like passive and active, where it's like, if you get to a certain point of like technological advancement, there is a 100% certainty that war will occur. Full stop.
War were declared.
Yeah. And then like, also, people can do things and do things in order to like create the conditions for war, and then like knowingly create the conditions for war. Like, they want war to happen. And like, so it's weird, because in this book here, it kind of feels like there's this weird there's sort of like this ticking clock, it feels like, between Estraven, Tybe, and Genly, who are maybe the only 3 people who realize that war is a concept on a planet of like everyone else who's just like, duh, what's going on, guys? Like, and it's just like, holy fuck, like war is about to, like, the inception of war is about to occur on like this otherwise pure planet.
Yep. Yeah,
Anyways,
it's a crazy position to be in. I think on that note, it's a good time to jump to chapter 2.
It is. It is. Should we take a quick break before we chat about this chapter, or are we good to go into it? Okay, we're good. We're good to go into it.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Let's do it. Let's roll on in.
So this chapter is all about Estraven. Oh fuck, no, it's not. It's all about Genly. And when we were talking about Fax and all that, I was like, I think Fax is going to stick around. I think that Genly and Fax might have the seeds of a budding relationship. Josh is like, I don't think Fax is really going to be a character. Who knows what's going to happen after this, obviously, but none of that fucking shit matters. And in the course of this one chapter, fucking Genly goes to like 6 different places. Months pass. This is like a much grander scope within the chapter than I anticipated at all. And like, I think it's even kind of crazy that Genly goes back to Ehrenrang, this like capital city of Karhide.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was going to be more of like a pivotal moment. And it's sort of like this weird footnote where he goes back and he's like, "Ooh, looks like things are getting a little dicey around here." Like,
I thought he was going straight to Orgaron or Ordran, and no, he just goes fucks off and helps out at a farm community in the mountains for a summer, and then comes back and is like, "Uh-oh, fascism."
Months and months past, right. So that all happens, and then he realizes the hold that Tybe has on Karhide. The king is pregnant, so they're out of the picture, which is maybe good anyways, because he keeps saying he's literally insane. The one chapter we had of the king, I didn't think he was that nuts, to be honest, but I guess he's crazy. I don't know.
What does that tell you? You could reflect on that with modern politics, I suppose.
Yeah, well, like here's my comparison, my analogy to current U.S. politics is that the king,
I'd love to hear it.
King Argivan, is Joe Biden, and whatever, he's docile but crazy. Okay, he goes away. Now Tybe is here, and guess what? That's Mr. Trump.
Oh yes,
maybe. Yep. I was thinking more along the lines of, they are. If you step back, you can see that they are insane, but when you get the one-on-one with them, they make enough sense where you can get through the conversation, which could be applied to many people in the government.
Yeah.
I would like to leave it at that for today.
All right, we'll leave it at that. But I think two good comparisons from our commenters here. So
I agree.
At any rate, Genly does kind of realize, hey, things are getting potentially dangerous here. I'm going to leave. And there's an embassy for Orgorian in Karhide. He goes to the embassy. He's like, I think I'd like to go to your guys' place if that's cool. And they're like, yes, but first, bureaucracy. And that lasts a while. But
not as long as they thought it would take.
No, which we know why, but yes. And as Genly's about to leave, he meets up with Estraven's old Camerer, Forseth. And
so, can we stop on this for real quick?
Yes.
2 chapters ago, we met Ash, correct?
This is Ash.
Okay, I was going to say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Because I forgot, but I did look back. It is the same person.
His name is Ash Foreth is his name.
Oh, it was a nickname. Okay, because when I looked back, I just saw Ash in that chapter, and I was just like, huh, that's a different name. So what pages does the new guy show, or does he show up in, oh, wait, I'm here.
In the last chapter, or the chapter we're discussing?
The chapter we're discussing. It's like 113, I think.
Oh, look at us. Page numbers and all that. Fancy.
I think.
No,
Forith Rem-Ir Osboth. There's no A in that name.
Well, no, but I did go back to that chapter because I had the same thought, Josh, and I was like, wait a minute, is that the person? If you give me a second, I promise I can find you where he says it, but that's gonna lead to us just sitting here for a moment. So
Well, we can banter for a moment.
All right. Let's do that.
So,
Connor, what's
how
going
about
on?
that weather? How about that weather out there?
Oh, it is raining cats and dogs right now.
It is. It is. Literally, those poor animals.
Oh wait, it was okay. It's the chapter one way into
Yeah, that starts on page 76.
Orgorian. So if you go to oh shit, that's not it. Dude, I literally fucking found this. I'm telling
Don't
you.
talk. My Bluetooth is connected. I can't hear you guys. Hold on.
Well, we're gonna keep talking
I
because
muted you so you wouldn't go through my mic.
we're doing a podcast.
Great.
Dead air is bad, isn't it, Connor?
What? What?
Dead air is bad when people don't talk on a podcast or like.
Yeah,
what's
no,
going on?
you
They're
should.
fumbling
You
around.
should keep talking. You should.
Keep talking.
Now Josh has got me looking. I swear to God, I found this when I was reading, and now I'm trying to look for it, and it's like.
Yeah, it's something I wouldn't get hung up on personally, but that's okay.
Oh my God. Well, now it's gonna piss me off. You know what? I'm gonna look for it later while you guys are talking about something. So let's move on.
All
Josh, it is the same person. I will tell you when I have found that it's the same person. Okay. At any rate, Genly leaves Carhide. He has the thing from Ash, Forseth, whatever. And, you know, Genly mentions, like, oh, yeah, I could go straight to Urgorian, but I want to chill. And it's like, because he doesn't want to just be there and immediately be the envoy, the ambassador. He says how pleasant it is to be a stranger on Winter, which is another cool like insight into the culture and all that, and feels very alien. I mean, like I can't imagine a world in which I think sometimes people say things were like that back then, and I still have a hard time believing it on Earth. Like I'm like, no fucking way.
Yeah, it does feel very alien to us today. It's like an idyllic past almost.
Yeah, a little bit.
Sorry about that. My headphones just died on me for some reason, so I had to switch to a different pair.
You're all good, buddy.
You back with us now?
I haven't found the thing yet, but I said I'm going to come back to it, and we're just finishing our summary of the chapter. And as Genly is making his way to Urgorian, he is attacked. He stays at this place. He's attacked. He has to leave. He's a refugee for like a day. And then, hey, he goes to Urgorian, and he is welcomed with open arms. He gets the fucking high-end treatment. He goes to this schwanky dinner. And, oh, who would you know sitting next to him? It's Estraven.
What?
It's Estraven. And they don't have a lot to say to each other.
I did like the end of that chapter, though. Oops, I was looking at the wrong end of the chapter. I was looking at the... Here we go. And it crossed my mind, though I dismissed the idea as baseless, that I had not come to Missionary to eat roast blackfish with the commensals of my own free will, nor had they brought me here. He had.
Yes.
So that makes me wonder what Estraven may be plotting here.
He realizes it all in that moment.
Yeah.
And oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just, one thing I like about this chapter a lot is, going into Orgorian, Genly is like so relieved that it's like calmer and actually they believe in order and, like rationality. And then I think at the end he's kind of doubting. He's like, oh, is that actually the case, or are there still insane people here? I think there actually might be some.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't really think about that, I guess. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from, Connor. It's funny because it feels like everyone he meets in in Orgorian to start, like the person he's staying with at his house, the person that he's talking to at the dinner, like his first impression is like, what the fuck is up with this guy? You know, if I met this person on Terran, I would fucking hate this guy's guts. And then he's like, you know what? They're not so bad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that quote, like it's like I met this guy on Terran, I met this guy on every other planet. I think I'll meet him in hell or something.
yeah, that was a great line. I kind of thought, like, I took that line to mean like essentially that Genly's like, oh, I appreciate that this person is helping me out. Like, I am selfishly benefiting from them helping me, but I recognize within their core something about them is rotten.
Yeah.
Like this, like, you know, yeah. Genly is not going to turn his nose up at a hot shower, his first fucking shower in 2 years. But he's like, oh, but I do think that this is like a rotten person, someone who will burn in hell, like, eventually. Not just that they're everywhere. Like, I think he sees through them a little bit. There's kind of like a fake veneer to them.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
Josh, I did find the name. Do you?
I found it too, actually, on page 78.
Yep, Forith Rem Ear Osborth. There we go.
Right.
Okay.
So, but it doesn't actually explain how you get to Ash from that. But I don't know, pet name.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some kind of rationale, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Yep. We also read that like 3 weeks ago, so, or I did at least.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this chapter generally goes through a lot. He goes through a lot in the course of just this one chapter. Josh, you want to tell us? You know, it doesn't have to be about what Genly went through, but maybe just general thoughts on the chapter, or maybe a specific thing you want to start with.
It was another dense chapter, but dense in a different way. Like, there's a lot of time condensed into the first 2/3 of this chapter, and then kind of starts to breathe again after he makes it to what's his name's place place. Yes. And I'm sorry I don't want to go through it looking for another names, but was the guy he roomed with in Orgathon, was he one of the guys that Estervin was talking to in the last chapter, or chapter 6?
Okay, I was wondering that, and I didn't look it up, but I was pretty positive that the person he was talking to at the dinner table was, because he said Obsol, and I was like, oh, Obsol.
That's the name I wasn't sure if the guy he was rooming with was the other guy. Oh, well.
To be honest, Josh, I have the same question, and I can't answer it for you, but maybe.
I see Obsol. I just flipped to the chapter real quick to that conversation. I see I'm only seeing Obsol's name.
If you want to keep looking, because I am a little curious. If you find it, you could tell us, and I can chat for a moment, or
and then thoughts. Remind me. I have there's something on page 109 I want to talk about when I do find this. Unrelated, but
Connor, how did you feel reading through this chapter?
Yeah, I mean, Josh is right. It's dense in a different way. There's a lot that happens through the course of this chapter. Obviously, Genly's travels are really interesting. You know, him being held captive for a bit, and the reactions that his fellow captive people have, like, based on like his experience with the captive people. They're very timid and docile, barely saying a word the entire night.
Right.
That's all interesting. You know, he gets plucked out of the bunch, and then is kind of in friendlier waters all of a sudden. So yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about here, but also it's a good it's kind of a transitionary chapter too, I guess.
It is, yeah. Yeah, you know, like mentioning kind of like the non-reaction of because like it's kind of nuts. Like you're reading through the chapter and you're like, am I losing? And of course you're like, no, this is meant to kind of explore the idea of like this very alien planet and culture. But man, what a great detail for Le Guin to put it. Like these people were literally burned out of their homes.
Yeah.
They saw people like killed in front of them.
Yeah.
They're all
Literally
rounded
heads blown
up.
off.
Yes. They're thrown into a literal pitch black fucking holding chamber with no explanation. And they're all just like, "Oh man, what do you think that was about?"
Yeah.
You know? In fact, they don't even casually ask that question. I think that Le Guin mentions it's like they don't even really look for an explanation. They're kind of it feels like such a non-reaction to such an extreme situation that, like, for myself as I was reading through it, I was like amusingly baffled because I'm aware that this is how I'm supposed to feel. Like, this is very different from how you would expect a human to react. And yet it's like, what the fuck? Like, what? It doesn't matter what fucking alien you are. You don't care? What's happening?
I know. Yeah, no, yeah, it's very much a mind fuck. It feels like a very non-human interaction response to something that, I mean, we're used to. Obviously these kinds of things are things we see on the news or whatever, or happen in real life, and the human response is to fight back, and
unless you're on social media,
yes,
in which case you compartmentalize it and keep scrolling.
You keep scrolling. Maybe you'll throw off like a sarcastic tweet here and there.
So maybe there is a little bit of that in there.
This is
somewhere.
this is just the end point of that complacency.
But,
yeah. So that was all interesting. I don't know. There's just a lot. There's like too much to go through, I guess, one by one.
No, there is. I have a few notes, I guess, but I think the broad idea too. Sorry, Josh, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, actually, I did find the name. So, in this chapter, Genli is staying with. God damn, I just had it on this page.
It's like Shibis or Shiz.
Shugas or something?
Yeah,
Shugi?
it's something like that. Yeah.
Great, now I'm looking for it. Fuck. Shuskus. Mr. Shuskus.
Yes.
Page 124. And in chapter 6, Estraven is talking with Opsal and Yegay. Yegey.
Gotcha.
Yegey?
Who knows?
Look at this country here. You are Gway.
Maybe it's Yeji. I don't know.
Was that like
Yeji,
some
yeah.
sort of nickname that like was on the playground, a name calling thing on the playground that just stuck? They just said, "You gay."
It wouldn't matter.
Yeah, what would it mean to be gay on Geffen?
They speculate that in chapter 7 is like there don't appear to be any same-sex individual or pairings, and if there are, it's just it wouldn't. It's so insignificant as to not really warrant discussion in the chapter.
That is stated, yeah.
Because
That's
they're
true.
influenced between the partners seem to influence which one ends up as which gender during Kemmering.
Yes. Yeah, that's like an excellent tiny detail to mention in this case. Absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
and I mean, one person can be a father and a mother to different kids. Which
Yes.
I mean, seems obvious, but I think it's worth stating.
Yeah, no, it is.
I like the little detail of the little detail of lineage is reckoned through the mother as like parent of the flesh. And I like, for some reason, I like that little detail of like what the translation of that was into the language of the story, English in our case.
Yeah, no, it makes sense completely. It is a good thing to mention because it's like, how else would you? I mean, you don't technically need to differentiate, but like it makes sense that you would. So yeah, okay. This is kind of a brief aside, maybe. but something about what Josh mentioned there, or what we're talking about here, made me think of it. But like, okay, in chapter 7, when it was talking about like all the phases, and it's like, oh well, essentially most of the time they do not have genitalia. It's like a Ken doll, you know. They don't have it. They don't have any genitalia, I believe.
I don't think they have any expressed genitalia. I think the genitals exist, was my impression, but they don't.
They kind of like shrivel up, I think.
Yeah,
right. They
exactly.
like recede or okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to talk about the genitalia. What I want to talk about is that it seems to be that the neutrality to be like at the beginning of the cycle is presenting male. And it feels like on Gethin, I kind of thought that like it would make it like that the ambiguity might be like more like reflected or represented physically, and it would be like, oh yeah. And listen, Le Guin has mentioned that the people on Gethin do present masculine and feminine traits. But as far as I can simultaneously, yes. Like she's written that. I'm not saying that's not in the story, but I do feel like that the descriptions of these characters has like skewed male. And I guess I was just wondering, is that also something that you see or feel, or is that something that I'm like projecting onto the book and I'm like missing this other piece? And I was just like legitimately asking, like, what have you guys taken from that?
I think it's all from Genly's perspective. I mean, we're the one that's reading his accounts of it all. He is skewed in that like binary way of thinking, and I think we are too, just based off of us being human beings. So I think we're supposed to. I think it's meant to be that way.
Yeah, I've definitely been automatically assigning just like male traits to these characters as they show up, until Le Guin reminds us that it's a mix of both unless explicitly stated otherwise due to biological factors. I don't know. It is weird. It doesn't help that Le Guin keeps using the masculine he for literally every Gethenian, but there's a bit in this chapter about how, or no, the in the last chapter about how he is used. Oh, what's the term here? Crap. They go in, the last chapter goes into why they use he instead of it, the neuter it, or the feminine she.
Yeah.
And it was like it was something about God and the divine for some reason. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Page 101. Yet you cannot think of a Gethenian as it. They are not neuters. They are potentials or integrals. Lacking the Carhiddish human pronoun used for persons in Somer, I must say he, for the same reason that we use the masculine pronoun in referring to a transcendent God. It is less defined, less specific than the neuter or the feminine. But the very use of the pronoun in my thoughts leads me continually to forget that the Carhider I am with is not a man, but a man-woman.
Mm.
I think that kind of sums up what we're going through as we read this.
Yeah, that's a great pull. You got that very quickly. You were like on top of that detail, Josh.
Yeah, I was reviewing the chapters before we or after my dentist appointment this afternoon, so I had some free time to sit down and like flip through it really quick, and I remembered where that was on the page and was able to. I don't look for the word so much as I look for the shape of the words when I'm doing a quick search, and I remembered it had quotation marks, so that helped.
Okay. Well, It does kind of answer maybe my question there. Okay, so let's go back to this chapter. There's just a few things I want to mention. One, we kind of touched on this before, so I guess I'll throw it out there. But Genly has this really, I think, kind of like interesting and insightful observation. He says, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he says, like, winter hasn't achieved in 30 centuries what Terra once achieved in 30 decades. And
again, alluding to that Terra could be Earth.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah, it's like
but then
there's...
again, which Hainish cycle? Because apparently, what Hainish cycle are we in right now? That's what I want to know at this point. Are we in like 1? Are we 92? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know either. And it does kind of feel like 30 decades. That's 300 years.
Yep. About the length of the Industrial Revolution here.
I mean, they could be describing, essentially the inception of America up until now. Like, that wouldn't be a weird pull necessarily for
I think
to make, but...
It's not, but I think it's specifically the Industrial Revolution that started in England in the mid-1700s. Basically, the invention of the steam engine.
Right.
So that's how I interpreted that comment.
Yeah. Which it could be, but it's just like, I don't know. I mean, it's like, yes, but the Industrial Revolution didn't last for 300 years. Like, that's not true. That's not what we refer to when we use the phrase Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was not 300 years long. It's 300 years since the Industrial Revolution. Now.
But there's been constant progress in that time.
Well, yeah, but like...
Yeah.
But we refer to the Industrial Revolution as like a historical event. Like, we're not in the Industrial Revolution, even though progress is still occurring.
Some people refer to this as the like the third or fourth Industrial Revolution with all the AI shit. It's kind of seen as like continual revolution, which is a weird way to put it, but it's I don't know.
Well, it's fair.
Yeah.
It's
difficult to quantize, but it's also like we're still industrialized. So I mean it's not like the revolution stopped. It just when they start differentiating where the industrial revolution starts and stops, they're really differentiating like what technology was taking the lead in the revolution.
Well, yes, but I think also the idea of like the revolution as a period of like relatively rapid and intense progress. It's like society's always progressing and advancing forward, but like this was a period in which like if you lived for a century, like you could essentially experience 3 lifetimes in 100 years in terms of like the rate at which technology was growing. And that's like not really true now. But at any rate, without splitting hairs, like I think it would be weird if Genly were writing this. Like, we know that this story must be taking place like tens of thousands of years in the future, essentially, likely. So I don't think they would be referring to the Industrial Revolution on Earth in the way that we refer to it. Like, that probably wouldn't be something that they reference. Like, I don't think it would matter. I guess what I'm trying to land on here is that as I was reading this, at first I was like, oh, well, maybe this is related to what we talk about on Earth. And as I considered it more, what I feel like as a reader is that I think this is referring to some other industrial revolution in the sense that like it could have created what's the fucking faster than light communication device or like I'm not sure it would make as much sense for Genly to be talking about a steam engine.
Yes, I agree. I when I said that, so I got a couple points here. When I said that this was likely a comment on our industrial revolution starting in about the 1700s with the invention of the steam engine, I think this is again pointing to the fact that Terra could or could not be Earth, and that the comments made on Terra do not say do not definitively say one way or the other whether Terra is Earth.
Yeah, that I agree with. Yes, I'm with you.
And so, and like I said, we don't know if it is Earth. We don't know what. What's Haitian? No.
Hamish.
Hainish cycle. Thank you. That we are currently in right now. They're in like the 93rd or 4th. It's at the beginning of chapter 7. Nope. 93rd cycle. So he could be referring to any of 100 different industrial revolutions, and on Terra, and you're right, it could be, any other kind of moment in their history. But the point that's being made here is that civilization on Terra progressed literally 10 times faster than it has been on Gethin. I think that's the main point of this passage. And
Yes.
I mentioned earlier there's something on page 109 I wanted to bring up. I think this might be a good time to do it.
Let's do it.
It's during Genli's reflection on Tybe's radio broadcasts and how he's pushing nationalism and trying to drum that all up. One of the most dangerous is the implication that civilization, being artificial, is unnatural, that it is the opposite of primitiveness. Of course, there is no veneer. The process is one of growth, and primitiveness and civilization are degrees of the same thing. If civilization has an opposite, it is war. And so the reason I'm connecting these is because obviously the revolution is the progress of getting from a more primitive civilization to a more civilized civilization, as we would consider civilized to be. And I really like the point that civilized and primitive are not opposites; they are relative locations on a spectrum.
Yes.
Where civilized is where you are used to it, where you grew up, and primitive is just worse than that from your point of view. And I really liked the assertion that the opposite of civilization is actually war, because, as we all know, war is hell. And there's that famous line, I think, from MASH which may be quoted from somewhere else, but is like war and hell are nothing alike because there's no good people in hell. So I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but my point is I really liked that distinction in a otherwise very uncomfortable to read section of the chapter because it is very familiar.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that line is a highlight. And
if I actually highlighted my books, I would have not highlighted it.
Yeah. It's too early to call, but like I read that line and it was like, man, that could be a highlight of the whole book. I mean, that's like it is a mind expanding thought, because I have to admit, if you were to tell me what's the opposite of hot, cold, what's the opposite of up, down, what's the opposite of civilization, I would have said, fucking primitivism or whatever.
Yeah.
I would have. I know I would have said that.
You want me to blow your mind? All of those are relative.
Sure enough,
yes,
they are.
Cold, but the cold is not the opposite of hot. Cold is a relative position on the scale of hot, and what is down, but just relative to up, and what is up if you have no down. They're not. Okay, to be fair, up and down are opposite directions, but they're not constant.
I get your point, Josh.
That gives me I think I'm starting to develop
down.
a theory of relativity.
I thought you were going to go into how the book seems to be pushing this whole everything's on a spectrum and not clear black and white.
That too, Joshua. That too.
Well, at any rate, this is a great, really a great I don't know, idea or even like a thought to propagate. I mean, like, because people have always said like war is hell, and people know war is, but like war is the opposite of civilization is really interesting because civilization creates war. You can't have Well, I was about to say you can't
Well-
have war without civilization, and Josh was about to rebuttal, but what about the chimpanzees?
Exactly.
But
yes.
I don't think that when we're talking about war with chimps, and it's not the same thing. You can't have like a global civilization destroying war without, of course, civilization to begin with.
Well,
And it's
I-
like, but like we're on the that on that spectrum. Does war start? Is the Roman army, did they go to war, or was it?
They did.
I think
Yeah,
by definition,
so-
yes, they did.
Well, yes,
They're an army.
but when did that start in our history? You know, what was the first? When did we
Yeah.
first break from conflict to war in the on the scale?
Somewhere between now and Cain and Abel, probably.
Well, so I think what Le Guin is trying to say, or maybe is like, given the pieces that we've been exploring in this book, I think Le Guin would have you believe, or is maybe arguing, that war begins when a man, talking about man as like men, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
The race
Yeah.
of men. when an individual kills another individual for a reason that is outside of their personal feud. And I think that's where the whole the creation of nationalism and patriotism comes in here, where it's like, oh, if Tybe is able to control the radio airwaves and influence enough car hiders into thinking like these Orgorians are, like, we're right to have our farmers go out there and attack this village or whatever. I think that Le Guin is positing that war begins when enough people are willing to kill people they don't know because of a boundary or because of a perceived nationalistic difference that they've been convinced of. I think that is like the inception or like the spark of war.
It is certainly a valid theory.
Yeah.
But I
do
mean,
wanna
like,
say,
yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think when we're done with this podcast, there a YouTube channel, SciShow, about a month or two ago, put out a long form video about the chimpanzee war that I'm mostly referring to here. I think that would be something you might find interesting after this conversation. But I'm trying to rewind a little bit and say that you're saying you're implying that the chimps don't have civilization, but they do. It's just far more primitive than we do. They're still squatting in trees and have their most advanced tool is a stick and a rock, but they have a culture that we can see.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to get bogged down into the weeds over these terms and their definitions.
And I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Well,
It's to make you think about it.
yeah. And I'm not just trying to discredit you, Josh, but I just, like, Le Guin makes this distinction where she's like, well, on Karhide or on Gethin, they have forays. 10 people might be killed. 20 people, 50 people might be killed. All I'm saying is I think that what you're describing as chimp war is probably still more akin to what Le Guin is describing as a foray.
Yes, based
Maybe.
on the
But it could also be a matter of scale.
based on the definition within this book, within this within the Ecumen's own sets of ideals and knowledge, that I think that would be a skirmish or whatever.
Well, okay, let's just talk about a few more quick things here. What we've talked about nationalism and fascism, but what about this whole, okay, the king's pregnant and Tybe is swooping in. He's in this position of power and he seizes the moment. He's on the airwaves. He's speaking directly to the people through the radio. He's trying to create a nationalistic identity. He's trying to justify and encourage his people to attack the Orgorians. I mean, I guess it does feel pretty on the nose in a lot of ways of like essentially like a fascistic rise to power. So I don't know if there's really a lot to say on that other than like, yes, it seems like that's what's happening here, but I guess I do appreciate the way that I feel like Le Guin sort of not only breaks it down, but feels like it's always happening in the background. Like, Genly will be at one of the island's places, and he's just like the radio's on in the background. He could hear it underneath the chatter, and he sees like some people are supportive, some people are indifferent, some people are dismissive. Like, I feel like we get this broad range of reactions, and yet like with our understanding of human history, there's like this very sinister, like, it doesn't matter that some people are indifferent, and it doesn't matter that some people are against it. The problem is that there's enough people who are supporting it where it's like, oh, like, this is happening.
This is no problem.
Yeah. Like, even just one person listening is like, it's like a growing cancer, It's like, oh, like, this is seriously troubling. And especially in a society like Karhide and Gethin, where it kind of seems like the conditions for something like this to take root and to fester and to grow have not really existed until like this exact moment in like Gethenian history. It feels like particularly dire and sinister that it is like now being propagated by Tybe. I don't know. Anything else there, or just maybe going on to our last couple points?
Yeah, I mean, nothing to add for me, but you're right.
Okay, I was like wondering, like, what does Tybe get out of this? Is it literally just power? Is this all just going back to like, oh, like the king is insane, that like, and Genly has been like awed by these people who kind of represent these concentrations of immense power. Like, is Tybe's whole deal that he wants to step up to be the leader of Karhide and to create war on Gethin to like, I mean, is this like a world domination plot? Is Tybe effectively just someone who's like insane enough and capable enough that like they just want to conquer the planet of winter? Is that the deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a reasonable assessment. I think we need more information on who this Tybe character is. We've gotten a little bit, but yeah, he's been second fiddle to Argivin. So I think as far as we are aware, yeah, he is kind of he's power hungry, and he knows what he needs to say to get it.
Yeah. And that's cool if that's all it is. I just I kind of found myself wondering. I was like, dude, Tybe, like, chill the fuck out. Like, what is your damage? Like,
Yeah, I mean, is it just like that leaders like Tybe are inevitable, like under these circumstances, like building a civilization like that, it's always going to happen at some point.
yes. Oh, okay. Wait. So that this is something I want to talk about, and I'll try not to fucking harp on it. But I mean, this is such a Dune, and especially even like God Emperor kind of like level fucking societal commentary, because the whole idea of what we were talking about in the previous chapter, where the writer is speculating on like, hey, maybe by destroying the boundaries between men and women and creating like this almost sexless species of humanity, maybe that would eliminate war. So, like, of course, the implication that's asserted there is like war is a consequence of men and women either cohabitating or of men as like a category or concept, like that war is a consequence of masculinity. And yeah, I mean, like, without fucking dovetailing too much into God Emperor, it's like literally those same ideas are
I
explored.
know. Yeah, we got the fish speakers.
Yes. And so, yeah, on the face of it, like, it's kind of fascinating. And I'm starting to see, like, oh, here's the Le Guin Herbert parallels. Like, I get it now. I'm reading the books. But I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, like, when you see an idea like this, sometimes I think it's easy to kind of scoff at it and be like, well, that's fucking insane. That's some weird ass dated 1960s bizarro fucking ass bullshit. You think that war is because of guys with dicks? You're fucking stupid. But
It
like,
makes me think of the Trojan War whenever when that point was coming up in the book.
well, but I think, like, I don't think Le Guin is just trying to say, like, oh, like, war is because guys, period. But sort of like the conditions, like, that's what made me think of it. Connor's talking about, like, the conditions are right at this moment for war to appear on Gethin. And so it's like, okay, so war can come about even without this distinction between men and women. Here we have essentially, like, one, quote unquote, one sex or gender on Winter, and it's like, hey, the conditions are still occurring. But I feel like Le Guin is sort of like at this thing where it's like, I don't know. Even though we sort of now have this counterexample to say, no, even in Le Guin's fictional world on Gethin, it's like war can occur. But I do think she's kind of exploring and asking, like, are the conditions for war more likely in a society and in a world that we inhabit? Is
Yeah.
it that, like, these differences, and like we were saying, how on Gethin and on Earth, our own, like, sexual culture and tendencies have these humongous, sometimes unobserved but constantly present ripple effects throughout our
Yep.
entire society. And I think Le Guin is sort of saying, like, is there a culmination of that on Earth where literally the differences between our sexes ultimately over the course of, like, fucking eons results in war?
Yeah, no, I think that is what she's doing here. I think yeah, it's not making a proclamation of any sort. I think it's exploring those ideas and then yeah, and then challenging them. And yeah, challenging, humanity's own preconceived notions on war. And obviously people who kind of think of it in a different way. I did have a good thought. Connor, you inspired me to tweet something before, or no, maybe no, just be a tweet from the chapter Chumps account. Okay.
Fix your mic just a little before you
Yeah,
say it.
yeah, you sound like you're underwater.
All right. Can you hear me?
That's better. Yeah,
It's not,
keep going.
Okay.
It's a little, but not much.
All right. So I sound fine to me. So, anyways, this is the tweet for the chapter Chumps account. It goes like this: War is when men get their periods.
Oh man.
Right? Isn't that a good one?
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of think that's all. Like, if I were to go on the fucking Spark Notes, if there is still Spark Notes for Left Hand of Darkness, I think that would be a great fucking snippets or yeah.
Yeah, anyways, yeah, let's kind of go through the lightning round here to wrap things up.
Yeah, I'm good. Josh, are there any specific points or things you want to mention?
I think we touched on most of it. We talked about the end at the dinner party. Oh, I may have had my headphones die at this point. Did you talk about how Jen Lee got to have a hot shower?
We
Yeah,
did
yeah.
talk about it, but
Kind of mentioned that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
I
was,
just wanted to bring it up.
that's
'Cause
one of the really interesting cultural differences between the two places.
Yeah, actually, I think that's probably the big point that I was trying to remember that I wanted to talk about at this point. The difference between Karhide and Orgaren are like night and day, and Karhide is like this feudal, like evil kingdom with a mad king and a power hungry regent, and then he crosses over into Orgaren, and it's like even the architecture is less imposing, and he's having idyllic country car rides on his way to the capital, and the people are much more jovial, and he seemed to get along with him more, just off the bat, even though there's, you know, a lot of like a suspiciously high level of bureaucracy. It's like there's talk about like missing papers and how you'd rather be naked than be missing papers in Orgaren, and it does sound like a, oh man, how do I put this? It sounds like a almost idyllic form of communism or fascism, somewhere in between those, I think.
Yeah.
Not that those are close ideologies, but like everyone is employed by the state, and the state ensures that everyone has a job.
I think there's definitely some allusions to communism here. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, the papers bit is like,
Yeah.
all right, am I thinking about the
That's fascistic. Yeah.
fascism or the like literally East Germany during the Cold War.
Yeah.
So I mean it's definitely not one or the other, but it's a mix of these things, and it's enough to make you think about like just how their system works and what's working for them and what's definitely not working for them.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what the problems are. There's clearly like a caste system with the different people in this. Not caste specifically, but there's definitely different tiers of.
Yeah, I mean, I think it said that everyone starts out evenly. Everyone starts out evenly, but there are different levels of wealth and prosperity.
Right, and Suskus or whatever the heck his name is one of the more wealthy people and is generous with his wealth. Well, what happens if he's not generous with his wealth? What happens then? I doubt we'll see that in the story specifically, but maybe it's just meant to make you think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Yeah.
I did think too,
it's an interesting dichotomy between these two countries. That's kind of what I wanted to get at here in the first place. Sorry.
It is, and I liked that. Orgorian is presented as like much more established, much more powerful, much more expansive. It has the largest city on Gethin, and
it also seems to have a more of a national identity than Farhide.
Yeah. Just they're much larger. They're much more like interconnected. I guess what I think is cool about that, or cool is a weird word, but I guess interesting. It's not the larger superpower that's the one that is like going out to accrue more land and like grow itself. Like Orgorian is like, we're big enough. Like we kind of are, because I think that they're like the top of the heap. They're the top of the totem pole. They're like, why do we need to expand? You know? And Karhide, I think, is made to feel like they're in this shadow. And it's interesting, like Josh, you had mentioned the whole Sign-Off Valley dispute. I mean, that's between Karhide and Orgorian. And I'm realizing that more and more as I read. And it's like Orgorian is like the established fucking like head bitch in charge, big dude on campus. Like, you know, fucking, even though we start in Karhide, Jen Lee pretty much started hanging out with like the number 2 in charge and didn't realize it for 2 years. And then he goes to Orgorian. He was like, I should have been here the whole fucking time.
Yes.
the
Yeah.
fuck was I doing
Yeah.
in Carhide? Like,
Yeah, it makes you wonder what the investigators why they ended up in Carhide. He
Yeah,
just the
that's-
language is better in
That's a good
Orgurian.
question.
yeah,
I did want to point out quick, just like the scaling back from the macro, some of the micro interactions. Like Shifter seems to be a bit different here. Like
Mhm.
handshakes or whatever.
Yeah.
There's like a subtle change that Genly is still trying to maneuver. So I mean, obviously, similar to differences in cultures here on Earth, obviously, but
Wasn't it the Orgorians in Chapter 6 who were constantly waving Shift-Grafor when talking with
oh yeah,
Estraven,
Estraven?
yeah.
it was.
True.
Yes, yep.
Yeah, honestly, I
So
was
maybe
kind
they
of
don't care about it as
wondering.
much.
I don't even know if the Orgorians have Shifter. That's what I was
Well,
wondering.
Well, they are know enough about it to wave it, so I think it's still a cultural thing, but it's
Yeah,
Well, they
It's
wave
less-
it when talking with Estraven, who's a car hider who's like
yes.
imbued in Shifter. I don't think the Orgorians care as much. It seems
They
like
don't-
to me.
Yeah,
They don't
that's
care
what I'm
as
saying. I think they're aware of it and they may have some of it, but it's by no means the same as
yeah.
what the Carhides go through.
Right.
It's not
Riders.
as elemental to their society as the
Right.
Carhide.
Yeah, like Carhide is built on Shifter.
Yes.
Orgorian recognizes Shifter, but doesn't seem to care
Yeah.
that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder why we started in Carhide in the first place. I don't know. Why was the Ecumen more interested in Carhide than in Orgorian? Or any of the other nations we hear about in this chapter. There's a brief reference to an Antarctic continent with people who maybe get slandered a lot.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe that's in chapter 7.
Yeah, right. They're kind of like the barbarian culture. Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tales of like tribe or outsiders from passed on by word of mouth is what it sounds like.
But they also have like more of the incest and stuff or something like that.
yeah.
It's like, oh,
What are you gonna do?
Gethenian
What are
Alabamans.
you gonna do?
Yeah.
All right. Well, any final thoughts, guys?
You know what was funny? I just want to say, so sometimes my wife has trouble sleeping, and I'll read in bed sometimes too. And if those two things line up, every now and then she'll ask me to read out loud.
Like for your students.
Well, no, I mean it just kind of like helps her go to sleep, I guess.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, no, I get.
And the thing is, I mentioned this. She's read this book. She read this before me. Connor gave us this book for Christmas. I think we said, what, 2 years ago, a year ago, whatever we said. And I had it sitting on the bookshelf. Now I'm reading it, of course. But she was like, she was in the Liguin. She read Earthsea. I already talked about all that. All I'm saying is, literally just the other night, she was like, oh, I can't sleep. Can you read out loud to me? And I was like, sure. And I'm about to read through chapter 7. So I read through like all of chapter 7 about like Kemmering and the fucking, I'm just like, oh yeah, and their genitals are retracting into them and they're shriveling
That
up.
must have really gotten your wife in the mood, huh?
It was just so fun. And like, again, like, she had read it all before. It wasn't like she's like, what the fuck is this shit? But like, it was just so bizarre. I'm like, why the fuck am I reading this out loud?
That's a great chapter to choose to read out loud.
I was like, what the hell?
Great way
Like,
to influence your wife into Kemmering with you.
yeah, right? Like, it could have been any chapter. Like,
I know.
whatever. So I just had to throw that out there. It was funny.
Great.
Nothing else on the
Should've led with
chapter. Yeah. No, nothing else on the chapter. So, Josh, are you good too? Connor, you're good too. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm good. We covered a
Yeah.
lot. But I just wish we could do this more weekly.
Oh,
well, we
trust me,
will.
Josh.
We will. That's
we
the plan.
will.
That's the
We
plan.
will.
I think
Well, I also want to
Connor
get through the
had
book faster. So
a busy week last week, and I was changing jobs and changing schedules. So now it should be
Yeah.
now we should be
To be
smooth
fair-
sailing.
yeah, to be fair, last week was probably not going to be that great for me either due to some work stuff. But
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
we're
well, I
past
mean, the
it
funny
now.
thing is I was telling Connor, like, if we had decided on any day except for Wednesday last week, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Like,
Yeah.
so it was just luck that the one day I was free, we had a plan. So I was like, I'm happy to blame Connor, but like my
Right.
schedule was jam
No,
packed
it's not.
anyways.
And it is too bad because when I come back to this book, I'll read through the chapters and I'll get really into it, but it's not always lingering in my mind, to be honest. And so, like, to take a longer break, like a 2-week break, it feels like I lose some shit. And this is like a complicated.
And it's worse for me because I read on like the Sunday or Monday before we podcast, and then we find out the day that we're going to podcast that we're not.
That's why you got to do it
so well, now I got to wait a week on this.
Do it like Connor and I do, and just read it 2 hours before we start.
I can't. I had a dentist appointment today. I literally had like 2 hours between when I got home and when we sat down.
I know.
Or when we were supposed to sit down.
No, we're gonna get on track. Don't worry.
I don't blame Josh. You're right to do.
I'm just being a straight man, keeping you guys on whatever schedule I can.
That's our whole deal. That's why it works so well.
I want to get back on track too because I don't want to. I don't want to like keep losing like the
momentum.
left hand, exactly, the darkness momentum, because it's like it's hard to come back to it and be like, wait a minute, what the fuck, like, so
look how much time we spent this podcast just trying to figure out what the names were for like 2 different characters.
Well, hey, let's stick with it, and the plan is we'll be talking 1 week from today. Connor, can you take us away?
Speaking of names, we didn't even talk about how the Orgurians used Genly's name instead of calling him Genry.
Because they know how to pronounce L's.
Because they're able to pronounce that with their language. Yeah. No, sorry. That's reminded me of that little tidbit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no. I really enjoyed our discussion. I think just like the chapters, it was a very dense discussion packed into 2 hours. Even though 2 hours isn't really a short amount of time, it feels like it's still
an hour in a chapter. I think that's fair.
But anyways, folks, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with more Left Hand of Darkness. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and now Blue Sky at Chapter Chumps. Please give us a follow if you're on any of those platforms. Who knows how much longer we'll be on? I guess we're going down with the ship with Twitter, but it's,
dude, I really have been thinking maybe I just get rid of my social media. I don't know, but
I actually Twitter was one of the like permanent tabs on my browser. I actually closed it this week and like out of spite. And it's like I haven't opened Twitter in about 3 or 4 days at this point.
Wow.
Trying to get
it's just
that's a big deal, Josh. I'm proud of you. I'm not kidding.
I don't know if I'm capable of that, but it's like useless at this point. It's like only things that make me mad. And we've been joking about that for a long time, but that's like really actually what it is.
Yeah. The only reason I'm still there was because of some spaceflight news. But one of the big spaceflight followers or outlets has a Blue Sky now, so it's like, all right, just
no point.
Get rid of Twitter.
Yeah.
But I'm also hesitant to delete the account because it's where my Navy pilot account like came from.
Yeah.
Or it's one of the oldest one that still exists because AIM no longer exists. And I'm afraid they could turn it into a zombie bot account. So
I think that's
keeping it parked. I haven't actually posted on Twitter in like months, but just not having it open is one less thing to burden my
that's smart.
It's like me with Snapchat. I've never deleted it, but I haven't opened it in 4 years.
Yeah, I deleted Snapchat like a decade ago.
I still have it on my phone, on my new phone, but I don't even know how to remember my login account.
There you
Anyways,
go.
folks, follow us on Snapchat and Bebo and MySpace.
We're definitely on Blue Sky.
Yeah, Blue Sky is where it's at.
And Twitter. If you want to check
review, and Twitter. For now, you can write us a nice review on Apple Podcasts and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and/or Spotify. But most importantly, folks, until next time,
war were declared.
Hell yeah, guys! Good job. Stream over.